My business was a multi six-figure earning business. I had never seen so much money in my life. I had never earned multiple six figures. So that was like a really pivotal point in my life and in my career. And I thought money would be flowing like that forever, right? And at this point, I got a raise at the university I was teaching at, and then I became a six-figure professor. Janice on the mic. In today's video, I wanted to talk about my DEI consulting business. So I have shared in several different videos, which I will link to above, my experiences as a DEI consultant. So for those of you who, I feel like you have to kind of have been living under a rock to not know what DEI is in 2026. But when I used to talk about it and make videos about it, it wasn't like, it was very niche. People still didn't understand what it was, but DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it has been enemy number one in the last few years. And so I want to share, as a DEI consultant, someone who's been doing this work for over a decade and who has had a consulting business for the last 8 years, how my experiences have been in this post-DEI or anti-DEI era. So to share some of my journey, for those of you who this may be the first video of mine you're seeing, I started my consultancy in 2018. I started it, I felt like I had to wait until after I got my PhD, but I had been thinking about starting a business since I was in the beginning of my PhD program. And even since I was in my master's program. So I could have started this, excuse me, this business in like 2010, 2012. But I felt like I would be more legitimate if I waited until I had my PhD. So I waited until I had my PhD. And then after I got my PhD, I filled out the paperwork and I started my business. So it's been 8 years. When I started my business, the 2 months after I started my business, I got my first client. And I remember how nervous I was. I was trying to appear like I was this seasoned vet. And I remember I charged them like $3,000 for a workshop. Right, and this was like the end of 2018 going into 2019, right? I had like in 2019, I think I might have had like 3 clients or something. I was teaching full-time as a professor in a business school in a university. So I was making good money. And this was just like a side business for me. And as we all saw in 2020, the world shifted, the world changed. Equity work saw a boom in the industry, saw a lot of corporate interest. And in the year of George Floyd's murder and the years following, my business was a multi six-figure earning business. I had never seen so much money in my life. I had never earned multiple six figures. So that was like a really pivotal point in my life and in my career. And I thought money would be flowing like that forever, right? And at this point, I got a raise at the university I was teaching at, and then I became a six-figure professor. And I had never earned six figures. I've been, teaching as a professor. I started as an adjunct since 2015. So it's been 11 years. And I had never seen six figures, right? When I started teaching as a professor full-time at a state university in New York City, they were paying me, I didn't have my PhD yet, and they were paying me $57,000, which was wild, right? Once I got my PhD, I started at a separate university in Connecticut, and they were paying me 70. I think they offered me 70 or 80,000. And that was a really big deal for me because I had never really earned that kind of money before. And I talk about this in my book, Decentering Whiteness in the Workplace, but I found out I was actually being underpaid. And they did some sort of evaluation where they evaluated people's pay. And I was one of the professors that I was teaching in the business school. I was getting paid at that time $85,000, and I should have been getting like $110,000. So they adjusted my pay. So in the midst of my business being a six-figure earning business, I was also making over $100,000 as a professor, and I was teaching extra courses. You know, they would ask me sometimes to teach extra courses in the summer or whenever. So we was making good money, you know? And in 2023, I would say things started to shift. I noticed a shift. I would say the best years for my business were 2021, 2020, 2021, and 2022. The best personal year for my business was 2022, y'all. I was doing a lot of influencer marketing. I'm not an influencer by any means, but I do have a fairly large LinkedIn following. And I can't remember if at the time I had over 100,000 followers. Right now I have about 150,000 followers on LinkedIn, but I was able to secure the largest brand deal. And in this video, y'all, I'm super transparent because I believe we should all be transparent around money, because that's how we're going to help to, we're not going to fully close the wealth gap and the pay gap just by talking about our pay, because there's structural things that also have to change, right? Like we have to get paid more. But I think the first step is like people being open and transparent about how much they are actually earning. And I remember I was contacted by an agency to do like this interview the CEO of Indeed and some other, executives at Indeed. And they asked me what my rate would be for that. I told them $3,000, right? They're like, oh, we're having this conference at the Javits Center. How much would you charge for a half day or a day of interviewing, blah, blah, blah. I said $3,000, y'all. There was this amazing Black woman who was the head of influencer marketing. And when I said 3,000, they didn't really say anything. And she emailed me back and she was like, actually, we have $30,000 budgeted for this campaign. So we are going to pay you So I got paid $30,000 for one influencer campaign. That is, I'm not an influencer, y'all. That's not like what I ever strive to be. But I was like, so 2022 was a good year. 2022, I also, I was approached to do a LinkedIn learning course. So I was LinkedIn flew me out to California. They had me in a nice cushy hotel and I filmed a LinkedIn learning course, which was amazing. I also filmed a course for Udemy Business. 2022, and I got a publishing deal. I had self-published 2 books in 2020. And in 2022, a senior editor reached out to me and approached me to write a book, Decentering Whiteness in the Workplace. So 2022 was a great year, right? I was still working at the university. 2022 is the year. In July or August, I submitted a resignation letter and I quit the university. And I don't regret my decision, but I definitely didn't anticipate that things in my business would be as difficult as they are now. So in 2023, things started to slow down. 2023, I had a few influencer things. 2023, I also did my second TEDx talk. So that was exciting. And then I was flown out by the same company that had the $30,000 brand deal. The same agency flew me out to LA for one day. They gave me like 2 days notice. They're like, hey, can you talk about, so we were talking about AI. That was when ChatGPT had just gotten on the scene. And I had written an article about the dark sides of ChatGPT. And I spoke on a panel with my idol, Elaine Welteroth. I had read her book, so it was so cool to be on a panel with her and some other influencers. Jerry Lee, I believe was Jerry Lee there. I saw him again. Yeah, Jerry Lee is a huge influencer in the career space. So Jerry Lee was there as well. But things were slow. I remember there was a period where in the spring things were slow. I'm still making $10,000 to do my workshops and to do my speaking engagements, but things were definitely slowing. And then in the fall of 2023, I found out I was pregnant. My book was also coming out in 2023, and I shared with y'all the story of JD Vance attacking me on Twitter and all the things that happened after that. And so 2023 was a wild year. 2024, I had my dear child, and business was slower in 2024, and 2024 was also the election. After Trump was reelected, November is already a slow time for me, but 2025 was horrible. Things were so slow last year. And my accountant, when she did my taxes, she's been doing my taxes since 2021. When she did my taxes, I saw that from the year that I made the highest amount in my business, I saw a 75% decline in my revenue in 2025 from the highest revenue earning year in my business. 75% decline, which I'm still hopeful, because that means that the interest isn't completely gone. But obviously, with all of the anti-DEI stuff, companies and corporations have backed off considerably from engaging in equity work. So things have been really tough. And again, my business is my main income generating source, right? I don't have the cushy university job where every 2 weeks I'm getting a nice paycheck, and the benefits and all of that. And so if you are watching this and you are also a business owner, you know the struggles and the ups and downs with business, especially, service-based businesses. I think things aren't as precarious, because if you're a product-based business, it's difficult, because with product-based businesses, you may be impacted by tariffs and by the Strait of Hormuz and by what's happening with the war in Iran. And so all of these factors. But as a service-based business and somebody who's in management consulting, I don't have a lot of overhead. I just need a functioning laptop, and that's pretty much it. But things have been really, really, really difficult in my business, but things haven't slowed down and stopped. And I will say my educational background, my PhD is in organizational psychology. So there's a lot that I can do with that, and it's just essentially like the psychology of the workplace, how to ensure that workplaces are functioning properly, how to make sure employees are happy and are satisfied, how to make sure that managers are doing their jobs well, how to navigate workplace changes, right? The people who develop those tests that you take on the job when you're applying for a job, that's psychometrics, and that's somebody who's in the field of organizational psychology. So I say all that to say the field that I studied and that I got my PhD in is very vast. But equity and DEI, and I didn't have the language for it back then, but that was what I was really interested in. And so I really have a interest, and I don't want to say a passion. I have a passion in racism. I have a passion in helping the most marginalized employees have better experiences, because I saw what happened with my parents, who were educators, and what they had to navigate. And I just think we spend so much time at work that it's imperative that our experiences aren't horrific and horrible. And so I have always really been interested in figuring out how to make people's workplace experiences better, and what that looks like and what that entails. And, what I've been doing to navigate this really difficult period is I've been looking to expand my offerings. I've been dabbling in data privacy and data security and what that looks like, because as somebody who has been online since the MySpace days, since the early 2000s. I've been online, so there's a lot of just information about me. And when the JD Vance thing happened, a lot of people were looking me up and trying to find stuff on me. And it's so important for people who do social justice work to be able to keep themselves safe. online especially. And so I've been looking into offerings and providing services for people around how to keep themselves safe, especially when they do and engage in social justice work. So that's something that I've been doing, is expanding my offerings, but I'm going to share more about that once things are finalized. So what have I been doing to navigate this difficult period? Well, number one, I shared looking into expanding my offerings. So if you're somebody running a business and things are super duper slow, I've seen a lot of DEI practitioners pivoting into other spaces. I don't see myself doing that because I love this work, and I think whatever job I do, I'm gonna find a way to infuse fairness and equity into the work that I do, because I think it's important and it's related to any sort of job or any space, is making sure people are treated fairly and treated equitably. That's a basic human right, or it should be a basic human right. I'm also concentrating on businesses that do care about equity and fairness and that do want to hire people in this space. There are still some, who do care about this work. Costco, I'm looking at you. If anybody working at Costco wants to hire me, I love me some Costco. And I love that they are standing 10 toes down and really making sure that they are keeping their DEI programs and not cowering and caving to the current administration when so many companies and corporations have done that. But I am concentrating on the companies and the businesses that do care about this work. I'm so grateful that I've been able to do work with the Southern Poverty Law Center. They've been amazing. I've also had some other clients, some more smaller clients, some nonprofits that I've worked with. And so I'm concentrating on those businesses, and also just remembering that this is what it is to be a business owner. Things are going to ebb and flow. Things aren't always super duper duper successful in business. Any business, whether you are a Target that's seeing a low point, or you are a small, solopreneur DEI consultancy. Things are going to have ups and downs, and there's going to be ebbs and flows, and especially in this particular industry. So I'm remembering and reminding myself that the pendulum will swing back, and the need for this work will always be present, because people are coming into the workplace with differences, and you need people and tools to help you navigate those differences. So I always know that this work will be important and relevant. So that's what I'm really holding on to. These people want to see us shut down our businesses. They don't want to see us win. And I do think that if the passion for you is still there, if you still feel committed to this work, continue, and know that you're not fighting alone, and that there's so many of us fighting the good fight, trying to get into that good trouble that John Lewis spoke about. And we're not going to give up just because there are some people who are mad about the work that we're doing. I think it's really important for you to find support and find community. As a business owner, it can be very isolating. I don't have a lot of people in my community that are business owners. I've had to cultivate that community because my close friends, my best friends from high school and even from college, none of them are business owners. And, most of them have corporate jobs or have 9-to-5s. A few are stay-at-home moms. And so it can feel really isolating because, my partner is he's in healthcare. So I think that my parents were the ones who really introduced me to entrepreneurship life, because they've been serial entrepreneurs. I think finding that community is so imperative. And if you decide that you don't want to do this anymore and that you want to shut down your business, I think that's okay too. And having the courage to admit to yourself, this is it, I don't have the heart to do this anymore, it's okay. It's not a failure. Life ebbs and flows, and sometimes we are only meant to be in business for a season, and it's okay to say, I did what I needed to do at the time I needed to do it, and now I'm moving on to bigger and better and different things, and that's okay too. So thank you so much for watching this video. I am really curious to hear y'all's experiences and y'all's thoughts. But if you want to hear more about my business and my experiences in the DEI space, just let me know in the comment section below. And I would love to create a video about that if that's what you all want and if you're interested. So I will see y'all. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all in the next video.